Well, hello there, hunters, and welcome. My name is Revonleak, you may call me Rev. So today I figured I would make a video for you guys showing my version for the ore harvesting guide. There's already multiple videos out there, but obviously I want to make my own version of it. And this is really for preparation for Sunbreak. If you just want to collect all the ores possible for the game, this tutorial is probably for you. Now, the point of this isn't that, making this a zenny farm or anything. It's more along the lines of having all the ores available to you for Sunbreak, basically. So I kind of prepared myself and did this 3 days in a row, basically non-stop. I did take some breaks, but here's the results. Basically, I have 1000 of each of the ores in the game, and I'll kind of show you the breakdown on how that is done. First things first, let's look at our equipment here. So I kind of spend a lot of time just figuring out what's actually needed and what's not actually needed. Things like Constitution and Stamina Surge are completely useless for you to use. So these are the skills that I highly recommend for you to use. Obviously things like Botanist won't work that well for ore gathering, or free meal doesn't really, but they just come with the set. So here's all the skills. And good luck also is kind of an extra thing for you to use when you do some quests, harvesting quests that actually have an end screen. Then good luck is pretty good there. But overall, the only things that are really important is Evade Extender, Wildbug Whisperer, Wall Runner, and Geologist. Pretty much that's all it. For the equipment info, we need a weapon that has 3 slots, a 1-2 slot and 2 1 slots. That's the most you can get out of any of the weapons. The largest amount of slots is exactly that. The helmet you can swap out for the Shadow Spectacles if you want a 3rd point for your good luck, but you will lose 1 point in hunger resistance as a result. But outside of that, the camera carbs are here for the Wildbug Whisperer mainly, the Loot Rod Braces obviously for the slots that it gives, but also the Marathon Runner it gives, Nargacuga Coil for the Evade Extender, and Genet Greaves for the Marathon Runner, and you can slot in the War Runner. The pedals is whatever, choose whatever you want, it doesn't matter. I've tested it out, it doesn't matter. For the talisman, obviously you can choose whatever you want. For me, it will consist the Botanist level 4 and 2 points in free meal. Your mileage may vary what you have available here. You might want to put something like Constitution in here if that's what you want, but I've tested it out and Constitution and Stamina Surge are not needed in these runs. So as I stated, we want all the ores possible to gain in the game, so we need to use multiple maps, and I will show you all the variations of runs that I will kind of guide you through. For the actual meal that we are going to eat, it doesn't matter either. If you look at all the Bunny Dango benefits, the one thing that rotates daily is the one that's relatively important, which is the Dango Harvester. But even that, if we look at my runs, there is only one run where it's actually useful, and it's in the Frosted Islands. Outside of that, it's not useful. So I'm not going to make use of it. Also, if we look at the Dango Gatherer, this only works for honey, not ore locations. So really there isn't much of Dango skills that you can use. So this is the set that I actually run, which is War Runner, Dango Fighter, and Gatherer, even though the Gatherer doesn't really affect anything, but it's there. The War Runner and the Fighter are really useful really for stamina, nothing else. On top of that, we need to have our Palamute with us. We don't take Palicos, even though they can gather materials and whatnot. It's more useful that we go speed rather than amount of ores gathered. Simply because there is a limit how long the outbreaks last. Usually it's around 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes it's even shorter. It kind of depends. So a lot of the times, if you're using palicos, you're just gonna lose on materials because you're not going as fast as you need to be. So let's kind of look at if we have any outbreaks here. So go to Expedition Tour, and the only ones we are going to use are the islands, the forest and the caverns. The plains and the ruins don't give any special ore materials or unique ore materials that we won't get from the islands, the forest or the caverns. That's why we use these three. So let's look at if we have a mining outcrops. We have for the forest and we have for the islands. Let's use the forest as our first example here. For items, I usually keep my item pouch empty, or I take like well done steak with me if I need to, but generally I don't. First things first, just keep calling your dog, keep moving forward, and just get on your dog as fast as possible. Here you can actually choose to take this wire bug on the left side if you want to. I'm not going to take that since it's kind of too early to take that. So I'm just gonna continue on to the temple here. I know that there are multiple guides doing different routes and whatnot. Obviously your mileage may vary on what you like to do. So here I'll take this wire bug. I like to do this temple first because it's one of the difficult things to do, so you want to kind of keep it early on here. Here just take the wire bug mid-air. That takes a little bit of a skill to manage to do that in a kind of consistent way. So I kind of messed this up a little bit, but we'll manage here. So go into this, doesn't really matter. And we can use our evasions pretty efficiently here. We don't really need to use the wire bug as much. We can do the evasion since we have evasion extender. It's really useful. So here we are going to go on this side of the temple now and wait for the opening and go there instead. And collect this. Take the dog, and I'm constantly, when I need to go on top of the dog, I'm constantly spamming the dog because sometimes it just doesn't respond fast enough. And the flooded forest in my mind is one of the best areas to farm in general, since the dog acts pretty consistently. Here we are going to actually warp to the top camp. So the dog is pretty consistent on this map because it doesn't aggro on enemies or anything like that like it does on other maps. Here I'm calling the dog again and I'm gonna go to the temple. Here we are skipping one ore location immediately. That is kind of important because it's way out of the way. We would have to drop down all the way down to the ground level, and it's not really that useful for us to do that. So here I'm just going to the left of the temple and hopefully we'll time this correctly. Yeah, we did. Collect this. There's also one ore location behind us now, which we will collect if this run goes fast enough. Usually it will, but if you're still kind of practicing this route, you might be a little bit slower with this route and you won't be collecting that ore location if it's a slower route or run. So here we are going to collect these and wire bug out of this cave to the left, and there's an ore location here. And this is really what I mean by the palamute being pretty consistent. It doesn't aggro to loot roads or anything, simply because there's nothing really around it to kind of take that aggro away. So that's really good. Even if you have set your palamute to large monsters only, that doesn't really work. It doesn't. So here we are going to take this ore location. That's pretty much it for this run. You can take this wire bug over there. If it's your third run, you probably are going to take that wire bug instead. But we're going to take this wire bug. That ore location hasn't spawned yet, so I'm going to actually move over yonder to take this ore location here. So take this and immediately go back to that first ore location. We are probably a little bit late on it, but will manage regardless. So it hasn't spawned yet, so it's fine. So usually by the time I get to this, it can take a while, but this is pretty much the route. And you want to be doing this until you get the quest update info on the right side of the screen, and that's when the outbreak actually ends. But usually it takes about 3 routes or 3 runs of this. And usually you also get 99 of Nova Crystals, 99 of pretty much everything in this map once you're done with it. So it's really good for Nova Crystals as well, which are the highest, well, the priciest of the ores that you can get. So since that was under 5 minutes, we probably have other outbreaks still here. So this doesn't reset simply because of the 5-minute limit. So you can use that route as a zenny farm as well if you want to. So let's go to the islands next, since we have that. So hop into there. And I'll eat as well. I don't really need to eat because there's really no point, but we'll just do it anyway. Alright, let's hop into this. So the Frosted Islands is a little bit different. So here the harvester does actually, the Dango harvester does actually work. So go to the right side immediately and, you know, use your Viabucks as efficiently as you possibly can. Go to this ore location and immediately drop down here into this ore location. Start spamming your dog, because here it can aggro into the Zamites and be a little bit tricky to get back on the dog. You need to go through this gap here. Here just do evasions to this ore location. Start spamming your dog again and start running with it. Here we are going to jump across this little gap over yonder, and hopefully I get this. Of course I completely mistimed it, but there's an ore location here. Here is a little bit of a trickier thing. We can use Viabucks here to get to this great Viabug. Of course I mistimed that, but if you do it mid-air you can kind of catch that great Viabug and get here a little bit quicker that way. And we can just drop down from here to this ore location. So it's really about me constantly staying on move, trying to, you know, optimize this route as best as I can. So here's a little trick I learned about this little gap. So we need to jump on the dog afterwards, after this immediately, and we need to jump off this ledge with the dog, jump off the dog, and then Viabug towards this ledge, and hopefully we can reach that. So that sort of an optimization is possible. If you miss that gap, there is a Viabug down there which you can actually pick up, which is pretty good. So you don't really lose that much, but there is that kind of an optimization aspect to it. So now we are going to warp to the top camp. And remembering all the warp buttons is a little bit of a trickier thing to kind of memorize for yourself. So here we are going to collect this ore location. We are going to skip one on the other side of this mountain, simply because it's really not necessary to do that. It's a little bit off the path and just tedious. So here we can collect this Viabug for one, and if you have a feline harvester active, after this ore location you can warp back to camp. But I found out that harvester usually what it does is, because it's not a daily skill that you can activate every single time, I tended to kind of forget if I had harvester or not. So for me personally, I just found it a little bit easier just to keep going and doing this route as I normally would without harvester. So that's why I think the harvester is a little bit, it's just not needed in many cases with these routes, because you can constantly keep collecting ore and not really take any breaks from it. There's a couple moments like the path to this cave where the harvester does benefit a little bit. So here we can go into this little cave, And if we aim this correctly, we can go into this sliding motion and kind of slide under the cave, but it's a really difficult thing to do, and 90% of the time I completely miss it. So that's possible. And here we do the same thing. We go into this cave. Of course I go into the pillar, but we go into this sliding animation and use a wire bug once we get out to get to this. And we can warp back to base camp. That's pretty much it for this run. Obviously, again, you do this like 3 times in a row, and you know, until the quest description or the quest timer says that the quest update has happened. So yeah, and this is pretty much on time as well. The ore locations start to spawn as you approach them, and yeah, it's pretty tight. So that's about it for the Frosted Islands. So let's hop into Lava Caverns next, and that's the last run that we are going to make. Hopefully I can actually showcase what happens if we don't get any outbreaks. So let's see here. So do we have... So we don't have outsearch or upsearch for the ore locations for the caverns. So usually what I do in this case is I go to the low rank expeditions and see if I have anything here, like the islands I can do now, and yeah, the islands. So I would do that to collect iron ore and earth crystal. Since we cannot get those in high rank, it's important that we do it in low rank to get the iron ores and earth crystals. Outside of that, we do rotations. So we collect or choose the Arena Quest 5, go to it and choose the Gunner. This is a quick way to kind of rotate the quest list. We don't choose the Spirit Bird that is on the left side of us. Instead, we try to aggro Rajang as fast as possible and try to die to it as fast as possible as well. Usually it takes 2 hits, and you want to kind of time your Viabugs accordingly. Just get killed and hopefully the quest rotation happens. Okay, so we have the upsearch for mining outcrops for the caverns. We'll choose that. And this time I'm just not going to eat, and I'll show you that it doesn't really matter what you do. So in the beginning here we can do the default route where we just choose our dog and go to the first mining outcrop. And alternatively you can warp to the top camp and start doing the quest there. But since this is the default route, then it doesn't really matter that much in general. I'll just do this instead and kind of give you an example of what to do after the warp to the top camp as well. So here we just collect all the ore locations, nothing too fancy here. Here we want to use the wire bug towards the ground instead of the wall like I just did. I just hit the wall because yeah, it does stupid things if it hits the wall. So here just warp to the top camp, and here we want to use a wire bug to go backwards and use the circle button or the B button to go this route and drop down the list here, or sorry, ledge, and jump down here and use the wire bug to go over yonder and use your evasions effectively here, just going between the ore locations. Use a wire bug here to go over yonder, and that's that. Then just keep calling your dog. Hopefully it comes in time. As I said, the lava caverns is a bit weird. Go to the left side here. You go to the sliding animation and you can kind of go through this opening here with the sliding animation. So yeah, then go over here. Here you can actually use a wire bug as well to kind of speed things a little bit if you time that right. Sometimes you mess that up and it actually slows you down, but in general it's a good thing. Here we need to use 2 wire bugs to get on top of this, and we need to wait a little bit. You can skip this if you want, but it's not really needed. So yeah, go over here. And now we are going to do something important. So of course I messed that up. So if you time that right, you can get to that ledge with 2 of your Viabucks. But if you don't, just collect this Viabuck instead, and you have 3 now. So always collect the Viabucks on the route to, you know, ore locations. There's 3 on this route, and there's 3 on every single route actually. So yeah, it's really useful. So here, let's just go ahead. Usually I collect either this and the one that is next to this one, but since we messed that jump up, you know, I collected that Viabuck instead. So here we can go on this side, and there's a Viabuck right there, which I usually collect instead. So yeah, here we need to use 2 Viabucks to get on top of this ledge. You can use your own tactics if you want, but I found that that's fastest. Get on top of this, and here you can do a roll to hopefully get into a slide immediately. And we get a little bit of a jumping boost for these ledges, which is nice. So do a sliding animation and call the dog. And here, if you have 2 Viabucks, it can be a little bit difficult to get on this ledge over here. So using, oh my god, I completely messed it up. That's so sad. So yeah, here we go on this side and go on this mining outcrop. Here we just roll to the sliding animation instead of using the pyramid, and we'll just use our Viabuck effectively here and call the dog. Here you can actually start doing your evasions and hope the dog comes to you. I don't know what it is about the lava caverns, but the dog just keeps doing this, where it just doesn't come to you fast enough. So here, since we were a little bit slow, this is already spawned. And again, I didn't eat anything, and I'm still collecting the same amount of materials, and I didn't use any stamina, so really it's not even needed to eat at all. But yeah, this is pretty much the route, and you want to be doing this 3 times, maybe 4 times. It depends on how long it takes for the quest update to happen. As I said, usually it happens faster, usually it's a little bit slower. So that's about it. Lastly but not least, of course, as I said, you want to be collecting all the ores, so you want to be doing the low rank versions of these runs as well. The most effective one I found is the forest area for earth crystals and iron ore. If you use lava caverns, you get other materials on top of that, so it's not as useful. And the same goes for the frosted islands. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully we'll see you guys on the next guide video or whatever I hope to make. So yeah, see ya!